we like to remind you that everything that you're experiencing in your world right now is because of what you believe. And let me clarify, everything that is happening to you, everything you're experiencing, everything that you're feeling, how much money you have in your bank account, the amount of love and joy and fulfillment and freedom, how much time you have, the quality of the relationships around you, all of that is because of a belief of what you believe you're worthy of having and or experiencing.
Limiting beliefs are something that we all have. Every single one of us at any given point, wherever you are in your journey, you always have a belief system that you are operating with. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast,
A space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Anniston, and this is Empowered Life.
Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. My name is Anniston, and I am joined today by my co-host, Rudi Anniston, and we are officially on part 4 of our series where we give you the information of how you can bring spiritual practices into business.
Today, we're going to be talking to you about limiting beliefs. And most people think and know that they have a limiting belief in their personal capacity. But what few people understand is that entire organizations or simply just collective groups have a collective limiting belief. And a really big part of what I do when coming into organizations is to help first with the individual, but then we start to discover what is happening within the organization. What does the organization think? What does the organization believe? And we want to share some examples of what we've experienced, and then also some tools for you to be able to shift out of an individual and or a collective limiting belief so that you can achieve your highest and your greatest potential in life and business.
This is by far one of my most favorite topics to talk about, and certainly one of my most favorite topics to train on in business and with individuals, because the fruits of that training are always so great. And limiting beliefs are something that we all have. Every single one of us at any given point, wherever you are in your journey, you always have a belief system that you are operating with. And this belief system, unfortunately, is not something that we're often conscious of. It's an unconscious belief system that lives in your subconscious, which is why we're oftentimes not aware of it. But when you can have someone come into your organization or into your life and literally hold up a mirror for you and bring light to something that you never even knew was there, that was holding you back from what you desired to achieve or the kind of life that you wanted, it's unbelievable.
Most people will say, how do I even identify, or where do I even begin to identify what are my limiting beliefs? And we like to remind you that everything that you're experiencing in your world right now is because of what you believe. And let me clarify, everything that is happening to you, everything you're experiencing, everything that you're feeling, how much money you have in your bank account, the amount of love and joy and fulfillment and freedom, how much time you have, the quality of the relationships around you, all of that is because of a belief of what you believe you're worthy of having and or experiencing. And so if you want to change something, you've got to change what you believe you are worth having. You shift your belief in your worthiness for love, and it's going to change the communication you're going to have. It's going to change how you show up. It's going to change where you are wanting to take steps or actions that you wouldn't have taken in the past because you're looking for a very different result in your life. And in an organization, most times companies bring me in because they want to have a growth strategy. They're looking to take it to the next level, but they're stuck. And they have this glass ceiling. Now, we can talk about the glass ceiling, but how do you break through that glass ceiling? And that's what we love so much about this topic of limiting beliefs, is identifying that there is a ceiling, identifying where it is that you're getting stuck, and then supporting you as an individual and then as a collective unit to be able to break through that so that you can allow the floodgates to open.
So let's start with, what is a belief? A belief is literally a thought that you've thought enough times that it has become an unconscious way of thinking and way of believing. It's like you unconsciously are thinking it 24/7, and thus it's driving all of your behavior. Your beliefs are formed when you're young, from the age of 0 to 7. Most of your beliefs are formed then. And then the experiences that happen after that only serve to then validate those beliefs, which is why many of us, if you had a belief, for instance, that you can't do something or you're not good at something, most times that belief actually took root and formed when you were really, really young, when your brain was in a state of hypnosis and it was just absorbing all of this information around you and what people were saying about you and to you, also what you were observing about life, about your parents, about the world, about your community. All of that information your brain took in and started to build out this blueprint, this belief blueprint of who you believe yourself to be, what you believe you're good at, what you believe is possible for you, what you believe is good and bad out in the world. And then that belief system is what you take with you as you age. And then your brain goes to work bringing you back validation to further validate your belief system.
We keep talking about the two-pronged approach of first supporting the individual and then supporting the entire collective group or organization. And when I go into businesses, I actually start with every single individual within the organization. So whether that's one-on-one with the executive team or whether that's doing it with the entire company, the process is slightly different, but the end result is going to be the same. We remind people that they need to be aware of what is happening in their life right now, what are they experiencing, and what they're experiencing is tied to a belief system they've had that was formulated in the past. And so we've spoken about this a lot. I'm going to recap very briefly in case this is the first time you're jumping in and you haven't heard the previous episodes that we've created in the series. But the brain, when it receives instruction under the age of 7, it then looks for evidence to reinforce that this is in fact a fact, meaning it doesn't have the ability to have ration or logic or reason. It simply just, it takes everything in. Sky is blue. Great. Got it. Children should be seen and not heard. Got it. We don't have money. Got it. And you then have the belief that you don't have money. And as Anniston said, a belief is just a thought that you've had again and again and again. But there's another part to it. The brain then scours all of the information, all of the evidence that is around you to look for evidence to reinforce what that thought was that you had. And so if you heard, we just never have enough time, or we just don't have money, or children should be seen or not heard, or you're really stupid, or you don't know enough, and you then process those thoughts of unworthiness or unfulfillment, or we in fact don't have enough time, or we will never have enough money, the brain then scours all the information around you and looks for anything that's going to match that. Then you produce feelings that match that initial thought. And as the brain scours all that information and you find further evidence to validate that that's the thought that you have, another emotion is then chemically dumped into the body. And so you have a physical reaction to the information. And this happens again and again, and it creates a cycle. And that's what becomes the belief. So the thought happens, you find the evidence, you have another thought, the thought happens, another bit of the chemical dump, and the cycle creates the belief. When I go into businesses and I work with companies, I will speak to high-level leaders and start exactly the same way. They all want to get straight into how do we change the business? And the first thing I want to do is remind them that first we need to identify where are you, what have you experienced, and what is currently holding you back, because it is a top trickle-down effect. And if you've got a belief, the people below you are going to also be carrying the same or similar belief, or you're going to be governing or managing them and or the business with that belief. An example I want to share with you is I was speaking with a client who just said to me, there isn't enough time. We absolutely don't have enough time to achieve everything. And that is the reason we've never been able to break through that glass ceiling. And so this was just part of a discovery conversation. What do you think is holding you back? What do you think we need to do? And they're like, we need more time. We need to create more time in the business because we just don't have enough time. So we went back to the basics, which is where I start with everybody. We went into the belief system. We explained how belief system is formed. And then I went back to an exercise that I take people through of what was your childhood? What happened under the age of 7? Let's go through a few key moments. And there was a pattern and a theme of 3 to 4 different major events that were very traumatic to this man when he was a young boy. And it was all around never having enough time and things being taken away and ripped away and having to fight and defend. And so today he's running a really big company, but he is running a company from a positional perspective of I have to fight and defend and I'm never going to have enough time and we're never going to get ahead. And so they've hit that plateau and they've never been able to break through. And the beauty of this work is when you can reframe that thought, reframe that belief, all of a sudden it changes everything inside the business.
There are several core limiting beliefs that I would argue the majority of the population has. And these core limiting beliefs drive a significant amount of the behavior that you see and not only in yourself, but in those around you, especially, you see it a lot in business. And one of these, as an example, is this core belief that I don't matter. And I don't matter is such a core belief and a common one because when you're young, what oftentimes will happen is as a young child, you will have an experience where maybe you're trying to get your parents' attention, right? And you're saying, Mom, 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 look at me, look at what I'm doing. And she says, not right now, I'm busy. Or I'm on the phone right now, I can't talk to you right now. Or she might have an armload full of groceries and you're asking her to pick you up and she's saying, I can't right now. Well, as a child, you would have perceived that as I'm not important. I don't matter as much as other people in my parents' life. Anyone who's a parent can absolutely relate to how many times, I can speak personally how many times I've done that with the kids, not thinking because you're assuming they will have context. They'll be able to see what's going on. They see I'm on the phone with a client or they see that I'm busy with something. So they'll understand that me not giving them attention in that moment doesn't mean that they don't matter and that they're not important. But unfortunately, that's how easy that can happen. Now, remember, that was just the child's interpretation of that event. If I showed a scene, that same scene, so let's say 5 different people, they could get 5 different interpretations. And so, but that interpretation then becomes the belief. So then every time you see your mother exhibiting that behavior, it's only a reminder to you that, oh, that's right, because I don't matter. And even if you go back to memories, you'll see that you don't only just see the image. What you actually see is the association with that image in your mind. You immediately have that feeling and that reminder of this is what happens when I don't matter. The reason I'm telling you this is part of the work that Rudi does so beautifully with individuals is to take them back to those moments and help them step out of that scene and to see it objectively, to see it in a way that they couldn't have seen it when they were young. So they can start to understand and unravel and unpack like, oh my gosh, all this time I've been believing and pretending because of this belief that I don't matter. And what happens then? How do I show up in a boardroom when I believe I don't matter? How brave am I to share my ideas when I believe that I don't matter? How brave am I to speak my truth in my relationships and business when I believe I don't matter?
The second belief that we come across most often in business is this imposter syndrome. And it's so closely linked to the first that people believe that they're going to get caught out. They believe that they've got to a certain level and they are fearful, literally living in fear that somebody's going to find out they don't know what they're doing or they're not qualified or that somebody else is going to come in and do something that they're doing significantly better than what they are. And so they're living in that state of fear, which again, when you take somebody that is experiencing that all the way back to their childhood, you start to see the patterns and the behaviors of what happened and what has held them back in life and in business.
Associated with what you just said, I was just thinking to myself that I believe the core belief at the root of imposter syndrome is it's not safe to fail. And a lot of us learn that, right? So maybe you bring a grade home when you're young, or you are reprimanded, or you feel like you observed somebody else failing and then observed them in pain. It could have just been that. That alone could have formed the belief it's not safe for me to fail. I need to be perfect. And if I'm going to fail, then I would rather not do that and stay safe in my comfort zone than take a risk and step outside of my comfort zone, which is, of course, is what you have to do every time you do something new because you've never done it before. Another one is it's not safe to be seen. Like it's not safe to be your authentic self. And again, this can so easily happen when you're young. If you get teased, like me, I actually was teased a lot when I was young because I was really gullible. And so me being my natural self was really chatty and curious. I asked a lot of questions and I was met with humiliation. So I stopped doing that. My brain was like, nope, this causes pain. Don't do that anymore. And then I started to dim my own light. Like I wouldn't raise my hand in class. And this led to a fear of public speaking. And then, just the domino effect of these are pretty substantial.
They really are. So another one that we come across in business quite a lot, at least I do when I'm going inside of organizations, is that people believe that they are in competition. And what I mean is they have a belief that they're in competition with somebody else in the business. Maybe it's for a promotion, maybe it's for a job, maybe it's for recognition. or the business or the leaders of the business think they're in competition with other people in their space. And what's so limiting about that vantage point is that you believe that there's this race that you're running and that only one person can win. And that is a very limited mindset. That is a mindset that says something happened in your childhood, something happened in your past where you weren't good enough, where something was taken from you, where you were pushed down, where somebody took something and they advanced themselves in their life or a race or whatever it was, and you did not. Whereas when you can change the perception of a business and all the people inside the business to realize that they are so powerful, so capable, and so brilliant, and they can have, be, and do anything, and that's the individual and the organization, then you're not in competition with another brand. You're not in competition with the people inside your business. And you create an environment where people begin to celebrate each other. I was brought into a business that had around about 30 to 50 salespeople that were out in different markets and territories. And it was so competitive that people believed that when somebody else came into their territory, as they were doing contract work, so they would be in a territory for 6 months, and then somebody else would come in and take over their territory. They would actually delete files. They would remove their marketing. They would stop all form of promotion, anything to self-sabotage the person coming in so they would look significantly better and more empowered from the office's perspective because they did better than the person coming in. And we quickly changed that culture to what if everybody wins? And what if everybody starts supporting everybody? And what if there isn't a race? And what if you get to be the most brilliant version of you? And what was so beautiful is this organization changed in such a short amount of time by adopting this culture of let's all create the win for everybody. And we celebrated that when somebody else wins, it's a reflection on you. And that when somebody else grows and you've played a part in that, that it actually supports the growth of the entire organization. And the business started to grow and people started to really double, triple, and quadruple their performance because now everybody started sharing best practices. And what was so beautiful about that example is in the past, that organization was the third out of 3 organizations that were competing in one market. And they became the number one in that entire market. And they produced unbelievable results. And they didn't have the same territories, they didn't have the same people. Everything shifted because they stopped looking at it as if they were running this singular race. And that's what we want to point out to you is these are just a few thought starters. These are a handful of examples of what does it look like if you have a limiting belief and you bring that limiting belief into your business. And if you run a business, I implore you, if you manage a group of people, you need to ask yourself, what are the beliefs that you use to govern yourself, to govern your life? Because if you have that belief, you're bringing it into your business. We said this earlier, and you're managing your people from that vantage point. And when you do that, you're holding the entirety of the business and yourself back. But when you start to do exercises to practice to unlocking your hidden potential, start breaking through that proverbial glass ceiling and start to stack the evidence of what does it look like, that's the true value and the benefit of doing this work.
You need to start with yourself. And then once you've honed that ability, bring it into the business. Our belief system lives in our subconscious. 95% of our time we spend operating from our subconscious. Only 5% of the time are we conscious. What does that mean? Only 5% of the time are we actually aware of what we're thinking. Do we actually think about what we're thinking? Now, when you come into a business and you're around other people, it is so much easier to identify limiting beliefs in others than oftentimes than it is in ourselves. And when you can get a group of people that you bring this into your culture, this self-awareness or this practice of being aware, the group awareness as well as being self-aware. And when you start to listen to the language in the conversation and you go into a meeting and let's say you're introducing a new product or a new initiative, everybody there is going to process that new initiative from their own belief system, right? Doesn't mean that it's right. Certainly doesn't mean that it's a fact, but it's real for them, right? Because that is their belief system. So if you get hit with resistance or you have a team that's really resistant, okay, well, don't panic. It just means that there is a belief system that is really, really strong in one of the individuals, which they've probably then enrolled other individuals into that same belief system. But beliefs can be changed. Science is showing it every single day. Your belief system, your entire personality is not permanent. It is variable. It can absolutely be changed when you know how to do it and you know how to start to do the identity work, because you'll never outperform the way that you see yourself. And your business is never going to outperform the way that your collective team sees your business and what's possible for your business.
In the last episode, I mentioned that when I spend an entire day, we call them immersion days with my clients, I'll go in and I'll literally walk the hallways, I'll speak to people, I'll have individual meetings with the key stakeholders, and at the end of the day, I can tell them what's wrong in the business. And when I say what's wrong, what I mean is where are the boulders? What's holding them back? What are the limiting beliefs? Where is the lowest hanging fruit? Where can we create the greatest shifts or changes? And I want to share an example with you. I started working with an organization that's in a startup phase and they're doing extremely well. They're in a new category globally. They're now primed for really big, explosive growth. But they have a revenue ceiling that they seem to have hit. And they thought the only way to grow the business was to now duplicate their facilities, which would lower their profitability. And I very quickly identified that they all use the same language. And they all individually said to me on different calls, different times, this business is very hard. It is hard for us to get people to come to our business. It's hard for us to produce the results that we achieve. And their board, obviously primed now for explosive growth, wants to see numbers and put down some really, really big quotas for them to finish their final quarter of the year. And they wanted them to almost double the revenue for the year, but they wanted them to double that in the last quarter. So there was a lot of fear. People were saying to me, like, how are we going to do it? We've never done this before. This is so hard. It's difficult. It's hard. And that terminology kept coming up. So I did a number of trainings where I supported individuals and then a group of people to shift that. What does it feel like if you say it's hard? And then what is the belief that you have when you wake up every day to go to work to produce the results and it's hard? And that when you have this quota for your final quarter and it's such a big number, you've never hit that number before, and you're already going in believing it's hard, what is the energy that you're going to be approaching that with? And so I posed a question. What if it's really, really easy and you've just made it really, really hard? And they all laughed and giggled because they realized they got caught up in the it's hard. And so we reframed, what if it's easy? Then we set very simple practices for them to be able to create environments where it feels easy. And the most amazing thing is, at the time of this recording, we're in the end of November. They've surpassed their highest revenue that they've ever had in a quarter, and they are very, very close to hitting that number. Now, I don't think they're going to go over the number, but they're doing something they've never done before. They've done an entire year's worth of revenue in only 1.5, 2 months of the last quarter of the year. And it's because they wake up every day and they say, what if it's going to be easy? What if this is the easiest thing? And they're constantly sharing like, oh, this person referred us, and it's becoming easy. I'm going to ask you now, what are the beliefs that you have in your personal life? What are the beliefs that you have in your business? What are the things that you hear in your life and in your business all day long? And what are the things that you think and feel? Now, Anniston said something that is so powerful and so important, and I want to bring it forward one more time. You are too close to your beliefs. You need somebody to call out your beliefs. Anniston's always calling out my beliefs. She'll say to me, every time you leave someone, you always say, oh, they didn't like me. And I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, yeah, you do. And then I realized I had a belief that people didn't like me. And it took me years to dismantle that. But now when I walk away from a conversation and my thought is, oh yeah, they didn't like me, then I'm like, it's not true. That's just an old belief from a childhood behavior or a pattern. But it took her to identify that in me. And I want to remind you, this is what I do for a living. You need people to look at you. And so find someone to help you in this process, whether it's in your personal life or whether it's at work, or both.
We are all belief architects, and basically we've been the architects of our own belief system since we were born. We just weren't conscious of it. But now that you are conscious that you create your beliefs and that you are a belief architect, it means that you get to start building the beliefs that are going to support you in achieving what you want rather than standing in your way. And a really great way to do that is to, let's say you're in a group setting, say you're at work, and you hear someone say, well, that's just not possible. That sales target, we're never going to hit that sales target. Rather than getting enrolled in what they're saying, and they're giving you all kinds of reasons, and maybe these reasons and historical data that show that it's ludicrous to think you could hit this target. But rather than get enrolled, recognize, okay, this is their story. This is their belief system. It doesn't have to be mine. And one way that you can support others is by just posing the question, okay, be that as it may, what if it was possible? Let's pretend that it was possible. What would we do? How would we do that? If we could move past this idea that it's not possible, and all of a sudden we woke up tomorrow and we all believed it was, what actions would we take that would make the most sense to get us to where we want to go? That's a really, really powerful question. Something else that you can do is to start building beliefs by finding other examples. We call this expanders, finding other expanders or people out there who are doing what you thought once was impossible. Maybe there's aspects of them that you think, you would like to become more like. Or maybe there are examples of companies who have, against all odds, achieved what you believe was impossible for your business. And if you can start to consume and flood your attention with all of these examples, your subconscious is going to start to dismantle bit by bit that belief every single time. And you can also do this for your team. So even if in your own company you don't have an example of hitting a certain revenue target, look at other companies that are like companies in your category, or companies that are around you that you can say, look at them, they did this. Look at them, they did this. What if we just believe it's not possible, but it actually is? This is where the work starts, because you need to get to a point where you're willing to take some action, and it's through the taking of the action that you start to really move through the limiting belief.
So I want to give you very, very quickly 3 ways that you could shift a limiting belief. So we've supported you in identifying that you have beliefs. Everything in your environment is showing you the feedback of what your beliefs are. You might need somebody to help you to identify them. You as an individual or as a collective organization, you identify what the limiting beliefs are. You hear the terminology, you say, got one, let's work on that next. Now, what do you do with that information? Anniston's given you now 2 simple ways that you can start the conversation of how do you look for new evidence, how do you stack the belief that something's different, but there's also something that needs to happen internally within you to be able to create a shift in a belief. Remember, you have been who you were longer than you have been who you want to be. And when you create a change, you've been the person who you were longer than the person that you've changed. So there has to be something that shifts inside you, and that is a manufactured change. People change really one of 2 ways. Something goes wrong, they lose the entirety of their business, they lose their life, their marriage, their health. Something happens and they say, I have to change. Or you manufacture one. We support people to manufacture change. And when you manufacture change, you can have, be, do, and achieve anything. And this is my most fun plan, is to do this inside of a business. And so here's 3 things that I recommend you do starting right now. I want you to wake up every single day for the next 2 weeks, and I want you to write out a list inside of a book that you buy specifically for this exercise, your own journal if you have one, but write out every single day everything that you've ever done that you're really proud of. This is a powerful, and it sounds really crazy, but a powerful, powerful exercise. If you every single day wake up and in the first 20 minutes write down, I'm really proud of myself for running this team. I'm proud of myself for hitting this quota. I'm proud of myself for my amazing marriage. I'm proud of myself for not getting mad at my children last night when they didn't brush their teeth and they ran around. I'm really proud of myself that I threw the football with myself, whatever it is. And you start to write out a list of all the things that you're proud of. You're now chemically instructing your body. You're telling your mind, what are you aiming at? And you start to feel proud. So that takes away the feelings of I'm not enough, or I'm unfulfilled, or I have imposter syndrome, because you're stacking evidence that actually you are pretty freaking awesome. And if you didn't know it, you're pretty freaking awesome. And you just need to instruct your brain to create that shift. Now, another one, and I love this exercise, and please don't let the simplicity of this exercise take away from the effectiveness of this exercise. If there is a change you want to create, a belief you want to shift in your life, you need to make a decision so deep within you that it physically alters something in you so you never go back to being who you were. So the last 2 exercises is what we literally do inside of organizations. It looks different, but I want to give it to you in a way that's going to serve you today. Is I want you to light a candle. And I want you to stare at that candle as you decide what it is you are going to create that shift in. What is that belief that you want to change? What is that behavior you no longer want to experience? And you build the emotion of what has it felt like? Where did it come from? Who do you want to be? Who would you be without that? And when you are ready, you blow out that candle. And the act of blowing out the candle flame creates enough of a shift inside your mind, and then physically inside your body, it alters to match to say, we don't do that anymore. Anniston will walk around the house all the time, and I love this because she'll talk to herself. And
what a crazy person.
She'll do something, and then she'll go, oh, we don't do that anymore. And I'm like, we don't do what? And she goes, oh, I was just talking to myself. We don't do that anymore. And that's where she's catching herself in the thought or the pattern or the behavior of, oh, I had a thought and that thought doesn't serve what I want or where I'm going. And then she's like, oh no, we don't do that anymore. And I love that because it needs to be playful and it needs to be something where you're catching yourself.
I think you bring up a good point because people, I think there's a fallacy in thinking that I'm going to move through this limiting belief and it's never going to come up again. I'm never going to think it again. As Rudi said, you've been yourself for a very long time. There are thousands upon thousands of hours you have spent running that same internal track. So what you need to be able to do is to recognize that it's going to continue to come up. The question is, how long do you actually let it affect you? And to what degree do you let it stop you? And that is the key, is that you want to shorten that because you need to become aware. You need to be able to be more conscious so that you can catch yourself in the act of being like, wow, I just had that thought that I don't matter. And I've already discovered and I've already realized that I do matter. So we're not going to think that way anymore. And I'm going to behave as if I do matter. That's it.
We don't do that anymore.
We don't do that anymore.
So the last one that I want to share with you is something we do in a group setting, and that is where we get the entire group to identify what is a limiting belief inside the business. Maybe we all believe it's too hard. Maybe we believe we're not good enough. Maybe we believe we're the underdogs, whatever that is. And then we make a decision that we want to shift that limiting belief so that that no longer comes up. I've had organizations put like little jars, like a swear jar when someone said they have to put money in, but we want to create a shift that happens internally, not this thing that's outside of you, like a little swear jar. But that's a great reminder. And to be able to do something like that is to get the entire organization to elevate their emotional state. And we can do that through playing music. We can do that through getting everybody to start speaking about what it is that is happening. And we do this in a very specific exercise inside of an organization. But I want to give you the framework so you can then go and duplicate this yourself personally, or you can do this within your business. If there is a belief that you have, and let's say your belief is that you're not good enough or you're not worthy, then you find a music track that fits that, where it starts out about you're not good enough, you're not worthy. And then somewhere in the middle of that track, the music shifts to, you know what, I am worthy and I can do it. And then you start to feel the change in the music and you start to nod your head and your feet start to tap on the floor and you create this visceral change inside your body. And then you have to make a movement. You have to make it something where you shift your physical state. I want you to shift your mind. I want you to shift your body. I want you to shift your energy. And so I want you to move your body, like celebrate a fist pump. And I want you to make a sound. So you're moving energy in your body. You're moving sound out of your body. We do it with board breaking inside companies where you have to punch through something that says, I am no longer going to think this, feel this, believe this. And on the other side, this is who I'm going to be. And then they punch through the board. You can do it with a piece of paper. It could truly just be a piece of paper. The board, the paper, all of this is just a symbol of what it is that you are creating that shift in. The catalyst is the emotional state that you allow yourself to build and bringing the awareness to this is who I was, this is who I'm going to be moving forward.
So at the time of recording this, it is towards the end of November, almost into December. And this is when most companies are really honing in on what those 2024 goals are going to be. Or maybe you individually are starting to think about, what am I going to want this next year to mean for me? One of the steps, the most important steps that is often left out of the process is to take the time to not only identify what it is that you want, but to go ahead and start to do the work of what limiting beliefs am I going to have to face in order to achieve this? Because make no mistake, every time you set a goal to achieve something you've never done, there are going to be some limiting beliefs that are going to come up. But it's so good because it's your opportunity to become aware, number one, that they're there and to move through them. Again, you can't move around them. You're not going to be able to avoid them your whole life. You're going to have to figure out a way to move through those beliefs and get on the other side of them so you can see them for the illusion that they always have been. Businesses that do not do this, like when in the company that I work for, every time we have a new initiative or we have a new sales goal, we go double down on training, on personal development, on hosting limiting belief seminars where we can go ahead and call out all the limiting beliefs we have heard the employees themselves say about why this is hard, why this is not possible, why this is just a pipe dream. And we literally will have a discussion amongst everybody and say, these are the limiting beliefs. And here are the reasons they're not true. And here are all the other examples of how this could absolutely be possible for you. And then we give them the strategies, then we give them the tools and all of the product and all of the other things that are going to support them in achieving that goal. But do not miss this step.
If you research the people that have won the lottery, 95% of people that have won the lottery, whether it was, $100,000 or $15 or $20 million, $100 million, 95% of them revert back to having the same amount of money they had within 2 years.
Or worse.
Or worse. But the reason that happens is because they didn't do this inner work. They didn't change what their belief system was around them having more money or them being worthy of having more money. And so the money cannot stay. Somebody that creates wealth, and it happens over a period of time, that could be months, it could be years, it could be decades, but creates wealth, they are leveling up their belief system of what they're worth. As it levels up, their income grows and it grows and it grows and it grows, and then they're able to maintain that because now they identify, they believe, and they live with that vantage point. But if you all of a sudden have this instantaneous shift and you didn't do the work to prepare for it, it's not going to last. And so you need to ask yourself, where are you in the scale right now in all of your beliefs? And if you are wanting to grow your business, you're wanting to grow your personal life, you're wanting to grow your wealth, your well-being, your love, your health, then you need to say, this is where I am because I've believed something around this topic. What are the beliefs that I have? And if I could create the change, which you can, what would you want to change? And then can you start to look for evidence to stack that new way of being so you can start to do the inner work and then make a decision with so much emotion, with so much intensity that you break through that board, you break the paper, you blow out the candle, that you never go back to being who you were because you deserve the person that's on the other side of this exercise. We just want to say we love you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on the Empowered Life podcast. Annis and I just adore hearing from you. So we're going to ask you, please send us messages. You can reach us on Instagram. We'd love to hear your DMs of what you took away from this episode. We'd love for you to rate and review our podcast. For us to be able to grow the reach of the work that we do, rating and reviewing is such a powerful tool. So please, please take the time to rate and review and share your feedback with us. Reach out to us personally and send us any messages of what you would like to hear most or what resonated most with you on the episode today.